Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a topic that, for many of you, might conjure up some pretty strong and often, well, not so positive associations. Middle management.
Hmm.
Just think about how often Hollywood lampoons these roles. We see them on screen, holding endless, futile meetings, sending out utterly useless emails, or seemingly getting blamed for everything that goes wrong.
Yeah, the classic stereotype.
It's a pervasive negative stereotype, isn't it? An almost universally accepted truth in popular culture that these roles are, at best, a necessary evil, and at worst, maybe a breeding ground for inefficiency and just profound frustration.
That's a perceptive observation. The very term middle manager has truly become freighted with negativity, often associated with those, 20th century ideas of bureaucracy and make work
Right.
within rigid, outdated hierarchies.
Paper pushers.
Exactly. It brings to mind images of paper pushers and gatekeepers rather than dynamic, impactful leaders. But what we're going to explore today, based on the insights from the compelling new book, Power to the Middle, by Bill Shaninger, Brian Hancock, and Emily Field, argues forcefully that this often underrated role, a truly crucial bridge operating between frontline workers and senior executives, is long overdue for a makeover. It's really time to challenge those ingrained perceptions and truly unearth the immense potential that's currently being overlooked.
Okay, so let's set the stage a bit then. What exactly is this book, Power to the Middle, aiming to achieve? It's from Harvard Business Review Press, published in 2023, so it's relatively recent, but it's already making waves with its primary aim: to, as you said, puncture these persistent negative stereotypes and offer a completely refreshed perspective.
Precisely. The authors, all deeply experienced partners at McKinsey, draw extensively from their years of advising organizations globally. They are profoundly convinced that middle managers hold the key to making work more meaningful, purposeful, interesting, and productive for everyone, including the managers themselves.
Right. Not just for the company, but for the managers, too.
Absolutely. This isn't just about making managers happier, though that's certainly a welcome byproduct. The fundamental mission of this book is to encourage organizations to adopt a new, almost radical mindset, one that places these managers squarely at the very center of crucial systemic changes impacting work, the workforce, and the workplace.
All three: work, workforce, workplace.
Yeah, it's about recognizing them as the critical nexus, the essential linchpin for driving innovation and sustainable positive change across all three of these vital dimensions.
And this brings us directly to why this deep dive is so relevant to you, our listener. Whether you're a senior leader grappling with big, thorny problems, perhaps trying to seamlessly merge disparate corporate cultures after a major acquisition, or maybe you're confronting a significant drop in demand for a legacy product, or even struggling with a major attrition problem within your workforce, this deep dive offers profound insights. Or maybe you're a manager yourself, feeling that relentless squeeze caught between often unrealistic expectations from above and the daily, on-the-ground realities of your team.
That tension, yeah.
Or perhaps you're a frontline employee whose entire experience of work is shaped, for better or worse, by the quality of your manager. We're going to unpack in detail why investing deeply in managers is not just a nice-to-have perk, but is absolutely crucial for sustained value creation and organizational resilience, especially as new technologies continue to rapidly reshape work and working lives.
That's the crux of it. The core mission here is to help you grasp precisely why engaging employees at every single stage, from the very top echelons of leadership down to the individual contributors on the ground, is absolutely vital for success in today's constantly shifting dynamic landscape.
You're right.
We'll show you, through compelling evidence, real-life anecdotes, and practical frameworks, just how pivotal middle managers are in making that engagement and ongoing transition a true lasting success for your entire organization. They are, in essence, the conduits, the translators, and the frontline enablers of change, without whom even the best strategies can falter.
So let's truly unpack this paradox. If managers are indeed so important, so central to an organization's success, why then do they so often feel, well, ineffective? Why is there such a prevalent sense of burnout and disengagement in these supposedly crucial roles?
Yeah, it doesn't quite add up, does it?
No. And a recent McKinsey survey, cited in the book, unearthed a truly startling, almost unbelievable statistic. Middle managers are, on average, spending almost 3/4 of their time on tasks other than managing their teams.
3/4?
Yeah. To put that into perspective, that means less than 1/3 of their entire work week is dedicated to what we traditionally consider their core function: leading, coaching, and developing people. That's an inverse of what you'd expect, isn't it?
It's a truly critical point, and the data from their May 2022 survey, which is visually represented in Figure 1 to 2 of the book, paints a very clear and concerning picture of how managers actually allocate their time.
Okay.
While only a mere 27% of their week is spent on talent and people management, a significant and disproportionate chunk is dedicated to individual contributions at 28%.
So doing their own tasks?
Right. Do their own work. Then strategy at 26%, and even administrative tasks consuming 19% of their time.
Wow. 19% on admin.
Yeah. So this means that roughly 3/4 of their day is consumed by duties that fundamentally pull them away from directly leading, coaching, and developing their teams. It's almost as if their job description isn't matching their actual day-to-day reality.
So if they're not managing their teams for 3/4 of their time, what exactly is getting in the way? What are the biggest, most stubborn barriers preventing them from truly stepping into their supposed primary role as effective people leaders? Is it just a lack of clarity, or is it something more systemic?
Well, the survey highlights several key persistent barriers that are stifling their true potential as leaders. Nearly half, a staggering 48% of managers, explicitly state they don't have the time to focus on people management.
Just flat out not enough hours in the day.
Right. Over a third, a significant percentage, lack adequate resources. And beyond those immediate constraints, systemic issues like organizational bureaucracy, cited by 39% of respondents.
Red tape.
Exactly. And unsustainable work demands, reported by 30%, are consistently getting in the way. It becomes abundantly clear that talent management simply isn't a top priority for their organizations.
So the organization isn't setting them up for success in that area?
Precisely. Senior leaders aren't actively creating the necessary conditions, the space, or the support for managers to succeed in this absolutely vital area. And, managers themselves, the book points out, often feel responsible for protecting their teams from what they perceive as misguided or poorly thought out directives from executives.
Acting as a buffer.
Yeah, exactly. They report that senior leaders frequently ask for the impossible because they lack a true understanding of the granular details of tasks or the nuances of strategy implementation on the ground. Managers want to be trusted to get things done in their own way, to innovate and lead, but that trust often isn't extended from above, creating a pervasive sense of frustration and disempowerment.
And this isn't just about efficiency or organizational productivity, is it? It's profoundly affecting people on a very deep human level. It leads to serious personal consequences that many of us might not immediately consider.
That's right. A Columbia University study of nearly 22,000 full-time workers found a surprising and deeply concerning trend. Middle managers experience higher levels of anxiety and depression than either executives or frontline workers.
Higher than both ends. That really flips our usual assumptions on their head, doesn't it?
Right.
We often assume the higher up the chain or the more precarious the front line, the higher the stress.
It does. And what's truly fascinating here is that researchers initially did assume the exact opposite. They expected that the lower a worker's status and power, the more their mental health would suffer.
Makes intuitive sense.
Right. But the study specifically cited the immense pressures of constantly switching between contradictory roles as a major reason for these unexpected and troubling findings.
Switching roles, how so?
Well, managers are caught in a painful, precarious middle. They command higher salaries and supposedly possess higher status and autonomy than their direct subordinates, but they simultaneously contend with lower pay and rank compared to executives.
The classic middle.
Exactly. This makes them, in effect, a punching bag on both ends. They frequently find themselves forced to implement decisions that weren't their own, and then, perhaps even worse, they end up taking the blame when things don't turn out as planned.
So they have the responsibility, but maybe not the full authority or buy-in?
That's a good way to put it. In short, the study found they often feel they have less power and control than the people who reported to them, leading to a profound sense of social disadvantage and lack of agency.
So it's this relentless vertical task switching, this constant mental ping pong between being a leader and being a subordinate that really takes a significant emotional and cognitive toll, leading to these alarming mental health outcomes. It's like psychological whiplash.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. As a Harvard Business Review article, specifically titled, "Why Being a Middle Manager is So Exhausting," meticulously explains, the norms and expectations associated with being a leader, things like assertiveness, decisiveness, taking charge, are often incompatible with the norms and expectations with being a subordinate, which demands difference, compliance, following instructions.
Right, almost opposite behaviors.
Pretty much. This becomes profoundly problematic when one is called upon to play both roles constantly at work, because, as the article points out, humans are notoriously inefficient when it comes to task switching.
Yeah, context switching is draining.
Incredibly draining.
Yeah.
So this constant vertical task switching, demanding a rapid shift in mindset and behavior, is not merely tiring, it is emotionally and cognitively exhausting. And, alarmingly, can even lead to serious long-term health problems like heart disease and hypertension. It's a silent drain on well-being that organizations often fail to recognize or address.
Wow. And beyond this immense individual human cost, this widespread anxiety, depression, and frustration, what does this ultimately mean for the organization as a whole? What's the broader business impact when managers are consistently overwhelmed, unsupported, and feel like punching bags?
Well, ultimately, it leads to significant costly turnover. It creates a drain on human capital and institutional knowledge. If companies don't change the way they reward and promote their best middle managers, the book argues, they will inevitably lose them. And in a cascading effect, they'll also lose the people who worked for those managers.
The ripple effect.
Exactly. It creates a detrimental ripple effect of talent drain throughout the organization. Furthermore, in today's transparent world where information is readily available, websites like Glassdoor amplify this issue.
Oh, yeah, people check those reviews.
They absolutely do. Companies with consistently low management quality scores are seeing potential job applicants doing their research and choosing to go elsewhere. Conversely, and this is the critical upside, the reverse is also profoundly true. People stay and are fiercely loyal to good managers.
That makes sense. People leave managers, not companies, right?
That's the common saying, and there's a lot of truth to it. Gallup research emphatically shows that the quality of manager is an extremely important factor to job seekers of all ages. But it is especially important to millennials who, the research suggests, prioritize a good manager perhaps even more than traditional benefits or salary. It's a tangible link between managerial quality and talent retention.
Let's bring this to life with some real-world examples from the book itself, which really drive these points home. You might recall the contrasting stories of Claire and Van, two leaders grappling with economic downturn.
Yes, those are quite striking.
Claire's company took a financial hit, as many did. But with the proactive help of her highly capable and empowered managers, she was able to quickly redeploy workers in the hardest hit areas to departments where demand was still robust, strategically shifting talent to where it was needed most.
So agile response.
Exactly. While her company certainly felt the economic impact, it wasn't nearly as pronounced or damaging as the hit Van experienced. Van, on the other hand, had initially operated without a middle management layer.
Which sounds risky as you grow.
Right. And when his company grew rapidly, the managers he eventually brought in were from the front line without any training in crucial areas like people management, strategic deployment, or even crisis navigation.
Just promoted without support.
Pretty much. So when COVID-19 hit, they were fundamentally ill-prepared for the rapid-fire problems it presented, leading to a much more severe and damaging financial blow for his company. This starkly illustrates the profound difference that well-supported, trained management can make in times of crisis.
Yeah, that comparison vividly shows the stark contrast between strategically supported middle management and a team of unprepared individuals thrust into leadership roles. Another equally vivid and relatable example from the book is Renee's first job.
Ah, yes, Renee and Jane.
Exactly. When her boss, Jane, a character many of us might unfortunately recognize, unilaterally decided to open a holiday pop-up store during the pandemic, a time already characterized by severe labor shortages, she simply forced Renee to divert her employees from their main store without consultation or planning.
Just dictated it.
Just dictated it. When Renee quite rightly voiced concerns about understaffing her primary location and not having sufficient time or resources for the pop-up, Jane simply brushed them off with a dismissive, "I know you can make it work."
The classic non-answer.
Right. This utterly dismissive approach led to Renee constantly lurching from one crisis to the next, feeling utterly overwhelmed, unsupported, and perpetually in firefighting mode.
That sounds incredibly frustrating and completely disempowering. A direct recipe for rapid burnout and disengagement. It's easy to see how a talented employee would quickly feel undervalued in that scenario.
It absolutely is. The book powerfully argues that Renee would have had a much, much better, more productive experience if only she had received more coaching and been given more time and authority to plan ahead.
Instead of just reacting.
Exactly. Instead, she was forced into a reactive mode, perpetually firefighting rather than proactively planning and strategizing, which is where true managerial impact lies. Contrast this with a different job Renee later took, where her new boss, Anita, demonstrated a truly supportive, empowering approach.
Okay, so a positive counterexample.
Yes, Anita checked in daily, actively collaborated with Renee, and, crucially, gave Renee the autonomy to innovate recruiting methods and train staff for her team. This led to a profoundly better experience for Renee. In fact, Renee herself later states she hasn't cried once at her new job, and the scar from her old one is slowly but surely fading.
Wow, that's powerful. It highlights the profound, lasting impact a truly supportive and empowering manager can have on an individual's well-being and career trajectory.
It really does.
And then there's Kelsey, whose story truly resonated with me, a dedicated middle manager who initially loved her career but simply reached her breaking point and walked away from it entirely.
Yes. Kelsey's story is a poignant illustration of what happens when this system fails its best people. She was a truly dedicated middle manager at a for-profit education company, and she genuinely loved her work and the mission.
So she was committed.
Deeply committed. But the constant, overwhelming pressure and a profound lack of support from senior leaders pushed her to her breaking point. She recounts a particularly vivid instance. She was sitting alone in her apartment late at night, meticulously checking P&Ls, that's profit and loss statements, when her boss called, not to offer support, but to ask about a maintenance plan for a suburban center.
While she's buried in financials. Seriously.
That's when she knew, definitively, that she couldn't take it much longer. Not long after that moment, she eventually quit her job and applied for a teaching fellowship, ultimately becoming a junior high English teacher.
Wow, a complete career change.
A complete change. The book highlights the sad thing is she would have been a lifer at that company if top leaders had truly understood how to nurture and reward her as a middle manager, to give her the support and autonomy she desperately needed. This is a common, often heartbreaking story of missed potential and talent drain.
Yeah, losing someone who could have been a lifer.
Ouch.
Ouch.
And we also see this in the story of Marcus, which offers another fascinating perspective on career paths. Marcus, a highly effective middle manager, despite being offered a promotion to a vice president role, a traditional symbol of success, declined it.
Declined a VP role. Why?
He realized he genuinely preferred the hands-on, community-engaging work he was doing as a middle manager, meeting a wide range of people and being close to the actual impact. He understood that his daily job satisfaction was far more important to him than a higher paycheck or an executive title, which for him would have pulled him into endless senior briefings and away from the doers.
So he valued the work itself more than the title.
Exactly. This demonstrates that not everyone wants to climb the traditional corporate ladder, and companies should absolutely recognize and reward managers who wish to excel and find fulfillment in their current roles.
Right. Value mastery in the role, not just upward movement.
Precisely. The book draws a parallel to companies like Waffle House, which promotes grill operators from grill operator to master grill operator with higher pay and responsibilities, or how skilled trades like electricians have clear career paths for growth within the same job, allowing them to remain an electrician for life at increasing levels of mastery and pay. It's about valuing mastery in a role.
Okay, so given these compelling, often heartbreaking examples, how did middle managers become so misused, misunderstood, and neglected in the first place? How did we, as an organizational society, get to this point where their profound value has been so consistently eroded over time? It feels like a gradual, almost unconscious decline.
It truly is a complex story, a confluence of economic and societal forces, as the authors explain. They specifically identify three major historical events in the last 25 years that collectively resulted in a profound misunderstanding of managers' purpose.
Okay, what were they?
Well, prior to this shift, historically, going all the way back to the Industrial Revolution and well into the 1950s, organizations relied on managers in the middle to communicate up and down, assign tasks, and measure productivity. They were highly prized for their crucial role in holding, filtering, and disseminating information.
The information hubs.
Exactly. This dynamic began to change dramatically with the intense cost-cutting mindset of the 1980s. During that era, shareholder value became the paramount objective, and slashing payroll costs, particularly by cutting middle management layers, was aggressively pursued as a quick way to boost stock prices.
Ah, the short-term focus on stock price.
Yes. The book argues that senior leaders, unfortunately, got into a bad habit of using their middle managers to paper over bad business practices, effectively leading to managers being unfairly blamed for deep systemic issues.
Like scapegoating.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
For instance, if an executive struggled to find qualified engineers, they'd simply hand that problem off to a middle manager who would then be blamed for failing, when the real underlying problem was a fundamentally flawed recruiting process at a higher level.
That makes a lot of sense. So diving deeper into those three major events that fundamentally shifted the perception and reality of middle management, what was the first one?
First, we have the technology boom of the 1990s and early 2000s. This was a truly pivotal moment because technology began to, quite literally, co-opt the middle manager's communication role.
Right. Email changed everything.
It did. Suddenly, a CEO no longer needed to instruct a middle manager to send memos to 17 different people separately. They could directly email everyone at once. More fundamentally, sophisticated computer programs could now easily measure productivity and prepare budgets, tasks that were previously central to a manager's daily work and expertise.
So tech took over some core functions.
It did. This led to a pervasive and damaging perception that managers were, in the words of the book, dim lights who seemed to exist for the purpose of making work rather than truly adding value. Consequently, layers of management were swiftly eliminated in the name of efficiency and cost savings, often leading to companies putting a freeze on organic growth or paradoxically creating more administrative work for remaining staff rather than genuinely addressing root problems.
Okay, so tech boom was number one. And the second major event, the financial crisis of 2008. How did that further erode the role of middle management?
Second, the financial crisis of 2008 put middle managers under further threat as organizations desperately needed to cut costs. This crisis led to deep, indiscriminate cuts at this critical managerial level across many industries.
More cost-cutting pressure.
Exactly. This era also gave rise to the widespread adoption of player coach models, where managers were now expected to not only manage their teams, but also produce significant individual output themselves.
Ah, the player coach. We mentioned that earlier.
Right. While this model had the perceived advantage of keeping them closer to the work, it severely limited their ability to coach and develop others, fundamentally diluting their core leadership function and shifting their focus away from people development. It created a situation where they were stretched too thin, responsible for too much.
Doing two jobs, basically.
Essentially, yes. And finally, the seismic shift of the pandemic of 2020. How did remote work and the ensuing changes further complicate or perhaps illuminate the role of managers? And third, the pandemic of 2020. With remote work becoming prevalent almost overnight for many industries, some managers initially rationalized that technologies like Slack and Zoom were now effectively taking over their roles in communication, oversight, and project management.
Thinking tech could replace the human element.
Some did, initially. However, what many senior leaders often failed to fully grasp was that the pandemic actually increased exponentially. The need for human-centered leadership, empathy, and the ability to inspire and lead teams.
Right, the soft skills became even more crucial.
Absolutely critical. The very human aspects of management became more, not less, critical in a dispersed, often anxious workforce. Many senior leaders, unfortunately, failed to reimagine their managers' roles in this profoundly new context, leading them to muddle along in outmoded ways, or for the middle management layer to develop late and haphazardly, as vividly seen in the biotech startup Delia's company.
The one with the huge valuation, but no experienced managers.
That's the one. This company had grown phenomenally to 700 employees and boasted a $10 billion valuation, but still had no experienced layer of middle managers to support its rapid growth, manage its largely remote teams, or navigate the complex challenges of a new work environment.
Wow. So it sounds like a series of missed opportunities, short-sighted decisions, and often outdated thinking that cumulatively led to the profound devaluing of what is truly a critical organizational layer.
Pretty much.
It's almost as if the very people connecting strategy to execution were systematically disempowered. Fred, the CEO mentioned in the book, even admitted a powerful truth that keeping you under my thumb is wasting your talents and holding back the company's potential. That's a significant realization for a senior leader.
It absolutely is, and it speaks to a deep systemic issue.
These events created a vicious cycle where managers were first undervalued, then stripped of the time, resources, and autonomy they needed, and then unfairly blamed for the resulting inefficiencies and lack of engagement. The narrative shifted from managers as vital conduits of information and crucial drivers of talent development to perceived bureaucratic overhead that was simply to be cut for short-term gain. This ingrained mindset is what Power to the Middle aims to dismantle, piece by piece.
Okay, so that diagnosis is pretty clear and, frankly, a bit depressing. How do we move forward? This brings us to part 2, putting managers at the center, the path forward.
Yes, the hopeful part.
Exactly. So how do we turn this around? How do organizations move from this place of pervasive managerial overload, neglect, and even burnout to one where managers are truly empowered, highly effective, and deeply valued? The book's part 2 is entirely dedicated to putting managers at the center. It advises nothing short of redefining and reframing managers' jobs so that they become the most important and desirable roles in the organization. That's a bold statement. They're the most important roles.
It is. This isn't just about minor tweaks or slight adjustments. It's a truly fundamental reimagining of an entire organizational layer.
And this absolutely involves a fundamental shift in mindset, strategy, and investment from senior leadership. The book emphasizes a crucial truth. If middle managers seem unnecessary or underutilized, it's probably because they aren't being given the tools, the training, and the autonomy to do their jobs effectively.
So it's a system problem, not a people problem.
Largely, yes. This isn't the problem with the individuals themselves, but with the system they operate within. To truly empower them and unlock their potential, senior leaders must proactively engage in several key actions. First, they must actively share best practices across the organization.
Break down the silos.
Exactly. Ensuring that successful approaches, innovative solutions, and effective strategies are not siloed within individual teams, but are systematically disseminated horizontally, allowing every manager to learn from the successes of others. It's about creating a living library of what works. Second, senior leaders need to deliberately create a culture of psychological safety where managers aren't afraid to speak truth to power.
That sounds crucial, but hard to achieve.
It is. In their unique position, close enough to the ground to see the daily realities and frontline challenges, yet not so close that they lose prospective managers, can be the first ones to detect serious systemic problems and suggest ways to solve them. This means fostering an environment where voicing concerns, offering critical feedback, or even challenging directives isn't seen as a weakness or a betrayal, but as a vital contribution to organizational health and continuous improvement.
Okay, share best practices, create safety. What else?
Third, senior leaders must genuinely show compassion for managers. We've already discussed how they have some of the hardest jobs out there, and surveys regrettably show they are, unfortunately, the most depressed and stressed category of worker.
Yeah, that Columbia study.
Right. Senior leaders must recognize this immense burden, ask managers how they are, and mean it, not as a mere formality, and then actively work to ease the causes of their stress rather than simply adding to it. It's about humanizing the role.
Simple empathy.
Fundamentally. And finally, and perhaps most crucially, senior leaders must empower them. This involves actively removing the burdening administrative tasks and the individual contributor duties that currently consume so much of their time.
Free them up to actually manage.
Precisely. And critically, it means giving them genuine autonomy and flexibility to make their own decisions within their sphere of influence. This elevation of their work allows managers to, in turn, truly elevate the work of those who report to them, shifting their focus from busy work to genuine leadership.
This deep dive consistently emphasizes a powerful, yet often overlooked truth, that people stay with and are loyal to their managers. It's about so much more than just compensation or a robust benefits package. It's fundamentally about the human connection, the sense of personal development, and feeling truly supported.
Absolutely. The book features the striking and illustrative story of Olivia, a bank branch manager who was completely drained by her job. She loved her team, she loved the people she worked with, but the demands of the role itself were exhausting her.
So good team, bad job fit.
Kind of. Her previous boss, Barry, embodied the worst of old management styles. He would dismiss her concerns with visible annoyance whenever Olivia dared to mention problems she was having.
Ugh, Barry sounds awful.
Yeah. But then, her new boss, Abby, approached things completely differently. Abby didn't wait for a crisis. She proactively asked Olivia what's going on. And then, critically, she genuinely listened when Olivia finally confessed she was thinking of quitting.
Just asking and listening sounds simple, but...
It makes all the difference. Through that conversation, Abby realized Olivia's energy and fulfillment came primarily from interpersonal relationships and helping people grow, not from the administrative, operational parts of her branch manager role. Abby saw Olivia's true purpose clearly.
So with that crucial insight, that understanding of Olivia's core motivation, what did Abby do? How did she manage to retain such a valuable employee who was literally on the verge of walking out the door? This is where good management becomes an art form, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Abby recognized a fundamental truth that many managers often tend to forget. People don't like to be bad at their jobs. She understood that when someone is underperforming or even considering quitting, it's rarely because they just don't care. It's generally because something profound is going on in their personal life, or critically because the job they're doing is simply not a good fit for them, for their unique strengths and passions.
Finding the right fit is key.
It really is. Instead of letting Olivia quit or seeing her departure as a betrayal, which Barry would likely have done, Abby actively helped her find a new role within the company. She guided Olivia to a position managing training programs for new hires in the onboarding department.
Wow, so she didn't just try to fix the old role, she found a new one.
Exactly. This strategic move perfectly aligned with Olivia's passion for developing people and simultaneously supported the bank's broader mission of helping more people achieve financial goals. This is a powerful, proactive example of how truly empathetic and strategic managers can prevent terrible waste of talent by focusing on aligning individual and corporate purpose. It's about keeping, rather than losing, valued workers by understanding what truly motivates them and then matching that motivation with organizational needs.
And this ties directly into the broader idea of purpose, which the book stresses as a key driver of engagement and, as we've just seen, retention. It's a concept that often feels abstract when discussed from the top, but managers are apparently critical in making it real.
Precisely. The book highlights that there's a huge purpose gap in organizations that needs urgent addressing. A McKinsey survey found a stark, almost unbelievable contrast. While a high 85% of executives report that they feel a strong sense of purpose in their daily work.
85% of execs feel purpose.
A staggering 85% of managers and frontline workers report that they are unsure or disagree that purpose figures into their day-to-day work lives.
Wow, that's a massive gap. 85 versus 85 the other way around.
It's huge. The middle manager is absolutely crucial here. They're uniquely responsible for deeply understanding both the company's broader, overarching purpose and, equally important, each individual employee's personal purpose. They are the ones who can bring this connection to life in daily coaching conversations and in how work is assigned and discussed.
So they're the translators of purpose.
That's a great way to put it. And purpose, for individuals, can vary dramatically. Some people seek to have a massive societal impact through their work. For others, purpose is more intimately aligned simply to providing for their families. And still others want to make life better every single day for the people around them, feeling that showing kindness in small ways equates to a big purpose.
So purpose isn't one size fits all?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Understanding these deep, often nuanced differences among employees requires real, empathetic listening and responsiveness on the part of managers. It may even, at times, lead a manager to courageously encourage someone to pursue their purpose elsewhere, if that means a better long-term happiness and fit for both the individual and the team.
That takes courage.
It does. This is a far cry from a manager who, like the infamous Michael Scott from The Office, might try to express corporate mission but comes off as phony or disconnected due to a fundamental lack of emotional intelligence. True purpose alignment isn't about platitudes. It's about deeply understanding and connecting.
Beyond retaining existing talent, the book also provides incredibly practical examples of how managers can proactively strategize the redeployment of workers, especially during times of significant change or crisis. Claire's ability to redeploy workers during the downturn is one clear example, but the book highlights how this can be a much more systematic and forward-looking approach to talent management, rather than just a reactive measure.
Yes. The traditional, often blunt approach to cost-cutting frequently means indiscriminate layoffs, which, ironically, then lead to costly rehires and retraining later when demand picks back up.
A layoff-rehire cycle, yeah.
Exactly. The book powerfully suggests that managers are uniquely positioned to help companies carry out cost-cutting in a more sustainable way by actively redeploying workers rather than simply letting them go. This strategic redeployment avoids the significant disruption and lost productivity that inevitably comes from a revolving door of indiscriminate layoffs, followed by frantic, expensive rehires. It's a much more efficient and human approach to managing economic ebbs and flows.
So it's about anticipating shifts in market demand, the impact of new technology, and even changes in regulation, and then proactively moving people to where their skills are most needed rather than just shedding them.
Exactly. The authors argue that managers, given their proximity to both the ground-level work and broader strategic goals, are in the absolute best position to redeploy workers to adapt to these ongoing shifts, allowing companies to consistently meet evolving customer needs and stay financially strong.
Do they give an example of this?
Yes, a compelling example is Maria, an insurance claims adjuster whose role was largely taken over by technology as cell phones allowed remote damage verification, making her previous duties less essential. Her work became increasingly dispiriting and felt without purpose.
Feeling obsolete. That's tough.
Very tough. Her manager, Ken, instead of letting her go, had a crucial conversation, asking, "Maria, how would you like to start selling auto insurance?" By asking that crucial question, what's left for humans to do when technology takes over tasks, they successfully repurposed her skills, and Maria ultimately found greater fulfillment and felt valued, precisely because her manager saw her potential beyond her current diminishing job description.
So Ken saw her potential, not just her current role being automated.
Exactly. And we also see major corporations getting this message. Walmart, for instance, has truly gotten on board with the idea of rebundling jobs and has developed a strong manager pipeline through its innovative Walmart Academy.
Walmart Academy. Tell me more.
This program offers extensive classroom training and ongoing on-the-job coaching, and Walmart has invested over $1 billion in free classes in critical areas like tech and health and wellness. This proactive approach anticipates future skills needs and allows former cashiers to become cybersecurity experts or pharmacists, illustrating a profound commitment to internal mobility and growth.
Wow, from cashier to cyber expert. That's impressive.
It is. Managers like Lorraine Stomsky at Walmart exemplify this, being the person that believes in you and helping employees transition into these new, higher-value roles. This is about seeing potential, not just current capability.
Okay, so redeployment is key. This deep dive also fundamentally challenges traditional recruiting methods. The story of Julia, the young job seeker, really stands out because it perfectly illustrates just how much the hiring dynamic has shifted, moving beyond simple compensation.
Oh yeah, Julia's story is great.
David, the hiring manager at one firm, was entirely focused on salary and benefits, offering almost twice what the position used to pay, thinking Julia would jump at a six-figure offer and remote work option.
Throwing money at the problem.
Right. But Julia, in turn, surprised him by asking about the company's carbon neutral pledge and the team's commitment to social causes. That's a different kind of currency.
It's a perfect illustration of how fundamentally the hiring equation has changed in the modern workforce. Julia ultimately chose a different company, where Carl, the manager, sealed the deal, not with a higher paycheck, but by introducing her to a team truly committed to environmental and social causes.
So the team culture and values won her over.
Exactly. Critically, these team members were genuinely enthusiastic, they even made jokes, and they seemed like people she'd genuinely want to spend her working hours with. This showed her a workplace where she could have fun, connect on a deeper level, and feel a sense of belonging, not just receive a paycheck.
Makes sense. Connection matters.
It really does. Larry, a middle manager at a transportation company also cited in the book, emphasizes this exact point, saying his industry is currently paying the price for the neglect of our most critical asset, which is people.
The transportation worker shortage, right?
Yeah. His company is running at a mere 60% capacity due to a severe worker shortage. And despite salaries literally doubling for some roles, Larry has personally experienced the futility of trying to compete on pay alone. He's now proactively making recruiting videos featuring his actual technicians designed to convey a powerful message. You're not just going to be a number, we're going to treat you like a person.
Showing the human side.
Exactly. This vividly shows that competing solely on pay is a losing strategy in today's talent market. The human element, genuinely conveyed by managers, is paramount.
And how do managers specifically drive diversity efforts in recruiting, especially when traditional methods might fall short or lead to homogenous talent pools? But it feels like they had a unique vantage point here.
They absolutely do. Priya, a manager at a tech company headquartered in Lincoln, Nebraska, faced significant challenges finding diverse talent through traditional channels, which often relied on the same limited pools from top schools or LinkedIn.
Your usual suspects.
Right. Her company also had the inherent disadvantage of being located in one of the whitest cities in America, which didn't help. While attending a Women in Tech conference in Atlanta, Priya had an epiphany. She realized that a significant 1 in 5 tech workers in Atlanta are black, compared to only 1 in 20 nationally.
Wow, a huge difference.
Huge. She immediately proposed targeting Atlanta for hiring and, presciently, allowing remote work even before the pandemic made it a widespread norm. Her innovative idea received the green light while she was literally still on the flight home.
That's fast action.
It was. This initiative proved so incredibly successful that her company soon had enough employees to set up a satellite office in Atlanta and developed concrete plans to replicate the model elsewhere. This demonstrates how your advantage will come from managers in recruiting when others are using the same limited talent pools and outdated strategies. They're the ones with the granular market knowledge and the entrepreneurial drive to find new solutions.
That's a fantastic example. This also brings up the equally important issue of college degree requirements, which can often be an unseen yet very real barrier to diverse talent and can inadvertently shut out highly qualified individuals.
Indeed. A 2022 study by the nonprofit Opportunity at Work found a stunning and troubling statistic. Qualified workers without college degrees have been shut out of 7.4 million jobs since 2000, solely because of companies' arbitrary college degree requirements.
7.4 million jobs, just based on a degree requirement?
Yes. This represents a stunning loss for workers and their families, limiting economic mobility, particularly for Latino and Black adults who, on average, have lower college degree attainment rates compared to the population as a whole.
So it disproportionately affects certain groups.
It does. Managers, more than senior leaders or HR, are uniquely positioned to identify these artificial gaps in qualifications and push for more inclusive hiring practices, recognizing talent and potential beyond a piece of paper.
Looking beyond the credential.
Exactly. This also extends to the pitfalls of using algorithms in hiring, as these too can perpetuate biases if they are not carefully programmed and overseen by human managers. Automated video interviews, for example, have been found to be dehumanizing and to inadvertently disadvantage candidates from less privileged backgrounds who might behave unnaturally on camera or have accents that the technology misinterprets.
So managers need to watch out for tech bias, too.
Absolutely. Managers must engage critically with these tools, not just blindly accept their outputs, ensuring fairness and human dignity in the hiring process.
Okay, moving on to the hybrid work environment. The pandemic irrevocably changed how we work, particularly accelerating the shift to hybrid models, which are now firmly entrenched in many organizations. And the book argues powerfully that managers are the absolute key to making these hybrid models truly work, not just blanket mandates dictated from the top.
Yes. This point is clearly and powerfully illustrated by the story of Sandra, a manager whose team of story designers thrived working remotely during the pandemic. They developed seamless routines and consistently delivered creative products with fewer bugs than ever before.
So remote work was actually better for them.
For this specific team, yes. When senior leaders debated a blanket 3 days a week in-office mandate for the entire company, Sandra pushed back forcefully, and for good reason. She knew intimately that such a mandate would feel like a slap in the face to her high-performing, productive team and would severely aggravate existing retention problems.
Right, because it ignored their proven success working remotely.
Exactly. She argued with conviction, each team has its own rhythm. From where you're sitting, you won't see the differences. Her core point was that a one-size-fits-all policy completely ignores the nuanced realities of different teams, their specific work, and their established workflows.
So she essentially advocated for trusting managers to make these critical decisions about hybrid work rather than imposing them arbitrarily from above. It sounds like a plea for autonomy at the team level.
Precisely. Her message to her bosses was clear and compelling. Trust your managers to make that decision. Hold them accountable for the outcomes they are expected to deliver, not for where they physically sit.
Focus on outcomes, not location. Makes sense.
It does. The book stresses that while senior leaders often want hard and fast rules for simplicity, the best approach for successful hybrid work is to trust managers to build natural momentum for in-office presence based on specific team needs for collaboration, brainstorming, or individual deep work.
Tailoring it team by team.
Exactly. This also includes empathetic managers crafting individual work-from-home arrangements that genuinely consider personal situations, such as employees caring for aging parents, having young children, or dealing with chronic illness, something senior leaders often don't have the time or granular knowledge to do effectively.
Right. The manager knows the individual's circumstances.
They do. Managers also intuitively understand that for single employees living alone, the office might actually be preferable most of the time due to crucial social needs and the desire for connection.
So it's not just about managers enforcing policies, but fundamentally about them facilitating the why for coming in, creating a compelling and purposeful reason for team members to gather physically. That's a subtle but significant distinction.
It's a crucial distinction. They intuitively recognize that physical workplaces can and absolutely should fill a massive social and emotional need that remote work, despite its benefits, can't always satisfy.
The social connection piece.
Yes. They leverage that reality by actively planning engaging lunches, fostering impromptu happy hours, and organizing special events designed to cement bonds between coworkers and foster more productive and purposeful teamwork rather than simply mandating presence and hoping for the best. This proactive approach builds connection, fosters a true sense of belonging, and creates a compelling reason for people to want to be in the office, making the hybrid model truly effective and employee-centric.
Okay, let's talk data. This deep dive also highlights that managers are absolutely pivotal in leveraging data, and perhaps more surprisingly, in challenging common myths about it that can hobble an organization. Figure 7.1 in the book, for example, shows a compelling statistic. Managers in high-performing organizations are a remarkable 39% more data savvy than those in other organizations.
39% more data savvy, that's significant.
It really is. That implies a direct correlation between data literacy at the managerial level and overall success.
Indeed. The book contends that the neglect and misuse of data has put many organizations at a severe disadvantage, and that managers can and should be at the forefront of solving this problem, turning data into actionable insights. It challenges three major persistent myths that often hinder effective data use and prevent organizations from truly becoming data-driven.
Okay, what are the myths?
First, the myth that the only data that matters is financial data. This narrowly focused view completely overlooks the wealth of operational, customer, and crucially, people data that can drive profound insights and competitive advantage.
Right, looking beyond just the bottom line numbers.
Second, the myth that data always tells the truth. Data, in its raw form, can be flawed, biased, due to collection methods or inherent prejudices, or severely misinterpreted without proper human context and critical thinking.
Data isn't objective reality on its own.
Not always. And third, and perhaps most crucially, the myth that data-driven solutions don't need human input. This is a dangerous assumption that can lead to significant errors, perpetuation biases, and missed opportunities for true innovation. Data is a tool, not an oracle.
Right. Can you give us a concrete example of how human insight is absolutely crucial when working with data, especially when initial assumptions based purely on numbers might be contradicted by ground-level reality?
Certainly. Consider the compelling case of the oil producer experiencing unusually high driller turnover. Executives, relying on their assumptions and perhaps some basic industry benchmarks, quickly concluded it must simply be about salary, assuming that throwing more money at the problem would solve it.
The go-to assumption.pay.
Right. But the manager on the ground, Michael, deeply rooted in the daily realities of his team, instead used an employee survey, a human-centric tool often overlooked in the age of complex algorithms, to discover two completely unexpected reasons.
Okay, what were they?
First, their freezers weren't big enough for homemade food, leading to significant inconvenience for workers on long shifts.
Freezer size. Seriously.
Seriously. And second, a strong perception that their working conditions were unsafe, despite the company having objectively high safety ratings based on incident reports.
So perception versus reality on safety?
Exactly. Michael addressed both of these seemingly small but profoundly impactful issues, proving that leaders too often assume they know what their workers want, without bothering to ask them. The safety perception, for instance, wasn't about the absence of injury itself, but the habit of safety, the feeling of continuous vigilance, which Michael needed to convey and reinforce.
Wow. That story vividly illustrates how critical human insight is in interpreting data and uncovering the true underlying issues that quantitative data alone might completely miss.
It really does. And it also reinforces what Facebook found. Employee surveys were twice as accurate as machine learning forecasts in predicting turnover, and that employees profoundly value the opportunity to simply be heard.
Just being asked matters. Okay, what about the broader challenge of technology and its role in data analysis? How do managers, particularly in this new landscape, interact with increasingly sophisticated algorithms and machine learning models?
Well, even with highly sophisticated algorithms and machine learning models dominating data analysis, Human input and managerial understanding are absolutely essential, not optional. The book uses the excellent and very relatable metaphor that using a machine learning model is more like driving a car than riding an elevator.
I like that. Meaning you need to steer it.
Exactly. It means you don't just push a button and expect it to work perfectly every time. It requires human understanding of operating procedures, rules of the road, and safety practices to ensure the technology is used effectively and ethically, critically avoiding perpetuating biases that might be baked into the programming by the humans who created them.
Got it. Human oversight is key.
Crucial. The story of the donut factory illustrates this perfectly. Cheryl, a sharp research manager, used combined HR and operations data to solve a complex production issue. The data showed a problem only during a particular production changeover, and only on shifts when a new employee, Bob, was working.
Pinpointing it to Bob's shifts.
Right, but just blaming Bob wasn't the answer. Without that human context and Cheryl's understanding of her team, the problem would have persisted. But Cheryl discovered Bob had missed specialized training for a particular machine. And crucially, his new supervisor had also missed the training.
So it was a training gap, not Bob himself.
Exactly. This crucial human detail, identified by a manager's deep understanding and the ability to connect disparate data points from different systems, was the absolute key to solving the problem, highlighting the invaluable role of managerial executive intelligence.
So managers are not just passive users of data, but truly critical interpreters and active drivers of action based on that data. They're the ones who translate raw numbers into meaningful impact.
Yes, they bring invaluable executive intelligence to the raw data, filtering it, contextualizing it, and understanding its implications for human behavior and operational realities. They also play a vital role in organizing cross-functional teams to effectively harness data, integrating diverse skills like project management, data wrangling, data analysis, subject expertise, design, and even storytelling.
Bringing different skills together around data.
Precisely. The book argues that middle managers can and should be at the very center of organizing these kinds of collaborative teams to truly unlock the full promise of a company's analytics, ensuring that data leads to actionable, human-centered solutions, not just interesting dashboards. They're the ones who can synthesize information from various sources, formal surveys, informal conversations, operational reports, and translate it into meaningful, tangible actions for their teams and the broader organization.
Okay, finally, let's talk about HR. The book emphasizes the crucial synergy between HR and managers. It's not about separate silos or departments working in isolation, but a powerful, collaborative partnership for effective talent management. This feels like a relationship that is often strained in organizations.
It often is, unfortunately. The ideal scenario, as the book highlights, is when HR actively works together with top executives and middle managers on talent management initiatives. When this collaboration occurs, the effect on organizational productivity and overall performance can be profound.
Profound effects.
Unfortunately, too often, managers and HR work past each other and make incorrect assumptions about the other's motives and behavior, leading to missed opportunities, miscommunications, and exacerbated problems that could have been avoided.
Working past each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that happening. How does this ideal partnership play out in practice, where each entity, HR and managers, brings a unique and complementary strengths to the table? What does that productive synergy look like?
Well, the book highlights that managers possess the deep understanding of their individual departments, needed to accurately perceive the critical gaps between old and new realities, and to identify precisely which policies and practices no longer work effectively for their teams on the ground. They have that granular day-to-day insight.
The view from the trenches.
Exactly. HR, on the other hand, can be invaluable in setting up pathways between business units, effectively breaking down entrenched organizational silos and taking a crucial system-wide view. HR ensures cross-functional efforts are supported, defines organizational-wide frameworks, and can help standardize how work is done across the entire organization, ensuring consistency and fairness.
So manager is deep view, HR broad view.
That's a good simplification. The example of Monica, a media buyer whose performance was mysteriously poor because her manager, Bob, was unknowingly creating unasked-for designs and sending unnecessary emails that actively hindered her progress, vividly illustrates how a lack of HR manager alignment can exacerbate problems.
Bob again. Poor Bob seems well-intentioned but clueless.
Exactly. Bob, though well-intentioned and genuinely believing he was being helpful by trying to add value, was actually creating obstacles for Monica. When well-intentioned managers miss the mark like this, HR, with its broader perspective and expertise in talent development and organizational design, can step in to provide the necessary tools and interventions to help managers like Bob truly support their employees effectively.
So HR can coach the manager.
Yes, among other things. It's about partnership. It sounds like it ultimately requires senior leaders to communicate strategy with absolute clarity, too, to ensure everyone, from HR to every single manager, is aligned and working towards the same objectives. Absolutely, that's foundational. Senior leaders are fundamentally responsible for clearly communicating their strategy to both managers and HR. This isn't just about sharing a PowerPoint deck. It means explaining the why. Why are we prioritizing this effort, and how will it make money for us or serve our mission?
Connecting the dots for everyone.
Exactly. This clear strategic alignment is the bedrock that enables managers and HR to make informed, collaborative decisions about talent, resource allocation, and policy implementation. It ensures that individual department goals and HR policies are all working in concert towards the overarching organizational mission. It creates the necessary context for the entire power-to-the-middle philosophy to truly thrive and deliver sustained value.
Okay, let's wrap up. This deep dive has truly unpacked how critical middle managers are, powerfully shifting our collective perspective from the outdated stereotypes of bureaucracy and make work to recognizing them as nothing less than the keys to the future of work. We've seen how they are uniquely positioned to understand both the big strategic picture and the granular day-to-day realities on the ground, making them absolutely indispensable for cultivating talent, fostering purpose, driving recruiting innovation, navigating profound organizational change, and fostering a truly human-centered workplace.
Yeah, hitting all those key areas.
It's about seeing them not as a layer to be cut for short-term gains, but as a vital, dynamic resource to be cultivated and empowered for long-term success.
Absolutely. We've thoroughly covered why the power-to-the-middle mindset matters so profoundly, how a series of historical, economic, and societal events inadvertently sidelined and devalued this crucial role, and then explored concrete, actionable ways managers can be empowered.
Right, the how-to.
Yes. This includes fundamentally redefining their jobs, effectively leveraging data, fostering individual and corporate purpose, driving innovative recruiting beyond traditional channels, and creating flexible, team-based hybrid work environments. The core actionable insight that resonates throughout the book and our discussion today is that when organizations truly invest in their managers—
Invest, not just expect.
Exactly. Giving them the right tools, the necessary training, genuine autonomy, and deep, unwavering trust— the benefits don't just stay within that layer. They ripple throughout the entire company, boosting talent retention, skyrocketing productivity, and ultimately ensuring sustained organizational success and resilience. It's a holistic transformation, not just a departmental fix.
So what's the lasting value here? What should you take away from this conversation? It's that the future of work isn't just about cutting costs, implementing the latest technologies, or crafting abstract strategies from the executive suites.
No, it's much more grounded.
It is, at its heart, profoundly human, and it hinges entirely on how we value, support, and empower the very people who connect the strategic vision to the daily reality of every employee. Our middle managers. They are the essential bridge, the real conductors of the organizational orchestra, determining the harmony and performance of the entire enterprise.
That's it. As the authors themselves experienced firsthand at McKinsey, and as leaders like Fred, the CEO, ultimately realized through his own struggles with control, keeping you under my thumb is wasting your talents and holding back the company's potential.
Such a powerful quote.
It is. This insight is truly transformative because it shifts the locus of power and potential. So the question for you, the listener, is this: how might you begin to identify and unleash the untapped potential within your own organization's middle layer?
What's the first step?
Right. What small, intentional step could you take, perhaps starting tomorrow, to shift the mindset in your sphere of influence, moving from that old cynical idea of make work to one of profound, lasting impact and human flourishing for everyone involved?
A great question to ponder. We hope this deep dive has given you plenty to think about, armed you with fresh perspective, and perhaps even sparked some concrete ideas for how you can contribute to this vital shift in your own organization. Thank you for joining us on this journey.